A squad of soldiers is escorting a wagon towards the mining area. Unexpectedly, the small wagon is packed with over 20 slaves, scantily clad and bound in chains. Just as the soldiers are about to beat a crying female slave, some disturbance arises outside. Sensing something amiss, the soldiers hastily peek outside through the gaps in the curtains. It turns out that Spartacus has arrived. He, leading several gladiators, launches into a frenzied attack on the soldiers. After successfully rescuing the slaves, Crixus still doesn't forget to inquire about the whereabouts of his beloved Naedia. When he describes Naedia's features, a nearby coachman mentions that he might have seen this woman. Under the pressing questions of Agron and Tiberius, the coachman finally reveals that Naedia was sent to the mining area a few days ago. However, the next second, Agron abruptly ends the coachman's life with a swift strike.
The man, he spoke of your woman.
What did he say? Fine fucking voice. Dead. Navy is dead.
Back at the camp, Crixus is heartbroken, as if the entire sky has collapsed. Spartacus deeply understands Crixus's state of mind, having experienced the pain of losing a wife himself. But now, with over 100 people following him, Spartacus must assume the responsibility of a leader and evade the pursuit of the Roman army. Spartacus takes out a map and discusses the next plan with Agron. Agron suggests moving east to the strategically difficult terrain of Mount Vesuvius to set up camp, reasoning that even if the army finds them, it would be hard to attack. Moreover, they could seize the opportunity to attack Pompeii and Naples, as these ports frequently transport slaves. Most of these slaves are war captives, not only capable of fighting but also natural enemies of the Romans. Thus, it would be easy to recruit them into the rebellion. Undoubtedly, Agron proves to be a deputy with a strategic mind. Spartacus immediately agrees with his proposal. At this moment, Crixus is still immersed in the grief of losing Naedia. His mind is filled with memories of their last moments, leaving no room for thoughts of battle. Spartacus encourages Crixus to move past the shadow of losing his loved one. After all, thousands of slaves like Naedia are still waiting to be rescued. However, Crixus is not receptive to his words. Seeing Crixus in such despair, the kind-hearted Tiberius is deeply pained. Tiberius wants to tell Crixus the truth that Naedia is still alive, but Agron stops him. In the face of war, no personal feelings can be considered. If Crixus learns the truth and attacks the mine, it could lead to the death of everyone. In the evening, when Spartacus announces the marching plan, the team becomes restless. The Gauls refuse to obey Spartacus's leadership, openly declaring their allegiance only to Crixus. In this deadlock, Crixus finally emerges from his grief. He clearly states that Spartacus is the leader of the rebellion and urges everyone to follow his plan and march towards Vesuvius. The next day, everyone starts packing to set off on the journey. Crixus even takes the initiative to help Tiberius with his luggage and apologizes for his previous misunderstanding. Facing Crixus again, Tiberius, overwhelmed with guilt, reveals to him that Naedia was taken to the mining area. Crixus, upon hearing this, furiously attacks Agron but is eventually pulled away by his companions. When Spartacus learns the truth, he slaps Agron across the face.
One that would never have passed lips had it been your brother Duro in her place. If a single life holds no value, then none are of worth!
He immediately decides to change the plan, choosing to attack the mining area with Crixus to rescue Naedia before considering the next steps. Agron is deeply disappointed upon hearing this. He never expected the two leaders to act so impulsively. Attacking the mining area is not as simple as it sounds. It's heavily guarded by hundreds, if not thousands, of soldiers. Not wanting to risk everyone's lives for one person, Agron takes a group of followers and heads to Vesuvius. This action by Agron preserves the last fighting force for Spartacus's rebellion in the future. This is a true representation of the life of a slave in ancient Rome 2,000 years ago. In a large mine pit that could accommodate thousands, the slaves' daily life consisted of endless labor, scantily clad like animals. From the moment of their birth, their only option was to spend their entire lives in the dark pits, with hundreds of soldiers heavily guarding the entrance and surroundings. Any attempt to escape would result in brutal beatings or being torn apart by horses. In such a hellish place, a group of people disguised as slaves attempt to infiltrate. They risk never being able to leave, with the sole purpose of rescuing a female slave named Naedia. Tiberius, disguised as a slave trader, negotiates with Foreman, but before long, Foreman seems to detect flaws in Tiberius's words. In a critical moment, Mira quickly stands out from the crowd.
Yes, yes. A special offering to compensate your troubles.
Foreman, lecherously, pulls Mira into a room. Just as Foreman is about to make his move on Mira, she suddenly pulls out a dagger from his waist and holds it against his vitals. Under Mira's threat, Foreman confesses that Naivia is working in a deep well in the mine, and Mira can find her using the map on the table. As Mira is momentarily distracted, Foreman attempts a counterattack. However, Mira, having battled alongside Spartacus, is no stranger to danger. She quickly ends Foreman's life with 2 swift strikes. Thinking there's a romantic encounter inside, the guards outside pay no attention, but as a guard approaches Spartacus, he suddenly recognizes him. The other gladiators act quickly, strangling the guards on the spot. After clearing the scene, Spartacus arranges for 2 men to don the guards' uniforms and keep watch outside, while the rest follow him into the mine to search for Naivia.
Go. Move, go!
On their way, they slay the guards and finally reach the deepest part of the mine. Seeing the slaves laboring under such harsh conditions, Spartacus is deeply pained. He silently vows to rescue all his compatriots in the future.
Live. No, I will return.
Suddenly, Tiberius spots a female slave with the mark of the Batiatus house on her back and immediately calls Crixus over. The woman turns around, and Crixus recognizes her at once as his long-awaited Naivia. They embrace each other, crying. After a year of searching, they are finally reunited. However, before they can savor the moment, a great danger looms.
Spartacus, someone comes.
A large number of soldiers rush in, and Spartacus takes the lead in covering the group's retreat. At that moment, Crixus spots a familiar figure among the soldiers, Ashur. But how did Ashur find this place? Since capturing Enemaus and presenting him to Glaber, Glaber has been torturing Enemaus to extract Spartacus's whereabouts. But Enemaus, like a statue, refuses to speak. Seizing the opportunity, Ashur pledges loyalty to Glaber, promising to extract the information if Enemaus is handed over to him. To gain Glaber's trust, Ashur even forcibly removes the gladiator mark from his arm. After winning Glaber's trust, Ashur hangs Enemaus in the training ground and brutally beats him. However, the torture is futile. Enemaus only seeks death. At a dead end, Ashur brings in Lucretia. In their conversation, Ashur reveals that he saved Lucretia and healed her wounds during the massacre. Ashur's aim wasn't loyalty to his master but to mold Lucretia into a person blessed by the gods, gaining the trust of the devout Glaber. This way, Ashur could also rise in status by controlling Lucretia. Now they are allies of convenience. If Enemaus doesn't reveal Spartacus's whereabouts, their fabricated prophecy falls apart. Knowing Enemaus' loyalty to the Batiatus house for decades, Lucretia subtly coaxes the information from him. Enemaus inadvertently reveals that Crixus is searching for Naivia. Thus, Ashur follows the trail to the mining area. Remember the 2 gladiators Spartacus positioned as lookouts at the entrance? They had already deceived Marcus, but Ashur, hiding in the crowd, recognizes them and immediately kills them. When he lifts their sleeves, he finds the unique mark of the Batiatus house, confirming that Spartacus and others are indeed there. By now, the group has escaped to the exit on the other side. According to the map, spotting the escape, the guards immediately close the iron gate. Seeing this, Spartacus throws a dart, killing the guard instantly, but the key falls into the mud, and Mira struggles mightily to retrieve it. However, they miss the best opportunity to escape. To cover the group's escape, Crixus hands Naivia to Spartacus and goes back to hold off the pursuers. They anxiously wait at the door for Crixus's triumphant return. Sadly, the pursuers gather in greater numbers, and Crixus, outnumbered, is captured by the soldiers. Seeing this, Spartacus has no choice but to lock the iron gate and flee with Naivia. Naivia cries heart-wrenchingly, unable to believe that just minutes after their reunion, they are separated once again. A squad of soldiers is conducting a thorough search for the dozen slaves who have just escaped. Hiding in the bushes, they dare not even breathe heavily. As the footsteps draw nearer, everyone's heart races with fear. However, at this moment, Naivia, long tormented, can't bear the immense psychological pressure and screams loudly, running towards the distance. Seeing their cover blown, Spartacus and his companions are forced to emerge and engage in a deadly battle with the enemy. The soldier at the back had caught up with Naedia, and he pinned her to the ground as soon as he could. Just as the soldier is about to kill Naedia, Mira leaps onto his face and swiftly kills him with several stabs. After a fierce fight, Spartacus and his group kill all the soldiers but suffer heavy losses themselves. Yet before they can catch a breath, another group of pursuers arrives, forcing them to continue fleeing towards Vesuvius. Years of labor in the mines have taken a toll on Naedia's body, and she can no longer continue walking. With no other choice, Mira and Tiberius support Naedia as they press on, causing discontent among the other gladiators. Having already lost many gladiators in the effort to save Naedia, she has now become a burden to the team. They suggest abandoning her, fearing that otherwise, everyone might perish alongside Naedia. Spartacus, however, firmly refuses, having promised Crixus to bring Naedia to safety, even at the cost of his own life. Meanwhile, Marcus, accompanied by Ashur and soldiers, discovers the gruesome aftermath of the battle with Spartacus's group. As a warning, Marcus orders the bodies of the gladiators to be hung from the trees. Ashur, well aware of Spartacus's group's combat strength, proposes that Marcus send someone back to request reinforcements, but the overconfident Marcus rejects Ashur's advice, believing that Spartacus and his few men can't escape the pursuit of hundreds of soldiers. Marcus orders his men to split into smaller squads and continue the search. Before long, one of the squads finds them again. During the fight, Tiberius takes a fatal blow while protecting Mira. Fortunately, Spartacus leads the group to break through the encirclement. Now, including Spartacus, there are only 3 gladiators capable of fighting left. Mira can only defend herself, but escaping with the severely injured Tiberius and mentally troubled Naedia is far from easy. Seeing this situation, the other 2 gladiators again suggest abandoning Tiberius and Naedia, but Spartacus still refuses. As long as they are alive, Spartacus will not abandon his comrades. To ease the tension, Spartacus suggests the others go to Vesuvius to find Agron for support, while he stays behind alone to ensure their safety. Seeing Tiberius losing too much blood, Spartacus risks being discovered by lighting a large bonfire. Spartacus uses a red-hot iron sword to cauterize Tiberius's wound to stop the bleeding. After treating him, Spartacus quickly extinguishes the bonfire and continues carrying Tiberius as they flee. But not long after they set off, a group of soldiers, following the direction of the smoke, finds them. This group of soldiers is led by Marcus and Ashur. Realizing that escape is unlikely, Spartacus sets down Tiberius and prepares for a desperate fight. Unexpectedly, Spartacus, fighting like a possessed warrior, kills one enemy after another. Marcus is stabbed and falls to the ground. Seeing the situation turn, Ashur quickly helps Marcus escape to safety. Eager to prove himself, Marcus orders Ashur to continue fighting, not letting their prey escape. But the cowardly Ashur dares not confront Spartacus directly, fearing that Marcus might report him as a deserter to Glaber. Ashur suffocates Marcus to death when no one is around. Meanwhile, Glaber's situation is not favorable. Having failed to capture Spartacus for months, the Senate sends Albinius and a leader named Varinius to oversee the operation. Varinius, the cousin of a local magistrate and a nemesis of Glaber, has a background and promotion prospects far superior to Glaber's. Even Albinius has to curry favor with him. To please Varinius, Ilithia suggests hosting a banquet at the mansion. At this time, Ilithia is still considering Glaber's interests and trying to improve relations with Varinius. This would allow them to use the magistrate's troops to compensate for the lack of forces in the pursuit of Spartacus. However, Glaber shows no gratitude. He deeply despises the obsequious behavior of his father-in-law and his wife towards their enemies from the bottom of his heart. This deeply disappoints Ilithia in her husband. Originally, Ilithia harbored deep resentments about moving into this ominous house. Now, she not only reveres Lucretia as a seeress daily, but Glaber also opposes her at every opportunity, and that's when Ilithia got the idea in her mind that she wanted a new husband. Soon, a group of soldiers returns to the training ground with several captives, bringing Glaber immense joy. However, upon removing their hoods, he realizes they are not Spartacus but Crixus, captured from the mining area. Disappointed, Glaber orders Crixus to be thrown into the dungeon. There, Crixus also encounters Enemos, who has been captured as well. The banquet in the mansion proceeds as planned, unfolding as an epic and luxurious feast. Midway through the feast, Glaber brings out the captives he had captured earlier. including Enemaus and Crixus. Glaber boasts of his recent achievements and then hands a knife to Varinius, urging him to kill the captives. Varinius, not wanting to exert himself to augment Glaber's achievements, passes the knife to his subordinate. He explains to the crowd that he doesn't want the captives to die so easily. Instead, he plans to send them to the arena, letting these rebels die in front of the public. Varinius' speech earns applause from the audience, making Glaber lose face. To regain some dignity, Glaber declares that these people once slaughtered Lucretia's family, and today, one captive must be brutally tortured and executed. Glaber gives Lucretia the choice to randomly select one for revenge, perhaps still harboring a faint feeling for Crixus. Lucretia spares him for the moment. However, Crixus's brother isn't so lucky. He is hoisted up, his tongue cut out, and then brutally murdered. At this point, Ilithyia, believing Varinius to be more promising and also single, approaches him and hints at her desire to marry him. Varinius, faced with the beautiful and well-matched Ilithyia, does not refuse. He asks Ilithyia to resolve two problems before discussing further: her current marriage and the child in her womb. Understanding his implications, Ilithyia knows she can handle the child, but the marriage is more complicated. According to Roman law at the time, only Ilithia's father can annul the marriage, so Ilithyia immediately approached her father with the idea of marrying Varinius instead. Although Albinius also dislikes Glaber, he refuses this absurd proposal on the spot, as it would damage the family's reputation. The scene of the father and daughter whispering was observed by Lucretia, who was nearby. She found Albinius in a corner of the mansion and initiated a conversation with him. As they talked, their conversation led them to the bedroom. Ilithyia, passing by, witnesses their intimate scene. After Lucretia emerged from the bedroom, an infuriated Ilithyia slapped her across the face. Ilithyia is shocked that Lucretia, in her quest for support, would stoop to seducing her father. Ilithia's murderous intent surges. Just as Lucretia is about to be strangled to death, she reveals that Albinius agreed to annul Ilithyia's marriage. It turns out Lucretia's involvement with Albinius was all for Ilithyia's wish.
The gods speak through me. He sees wisdom in their counsel. I did it for you, Ilithyia. To secure a future for you and your child. I would mend rift between us. One torn by my own foolish hand.
After much thought, Ilithyia decides to spare Lucretia, considering she might still be useful in the future. On the other side, Spartacus, with the two women and the severely wounded Tiberius, finally catches a blurry glimpse of their final destination, Mount Vesuvius. But just as they approach, another group of soldiers catches up, plunging them into deep despair. After settling Tiberius, Spartacus and Mira prepare for a final stand. However, as the group nears, Spartacus realizes that the leader is none other than his close ally, Agron. Despite their past differences, a true brother is always there when you need him most. Agron's trip to Vesuvius was fruitful. He liberated many slaves along the way, significantly strengthening his forces. Next, we'll see how they plan to destroy the vile arena and rescue Crixus and Enemaus.